Keanu Reeves had always been someone who moved quietly through the world. Even before his name became famous, he carried a sense of calm, a gentleness that people noticed. But in those early days, he was just another young man trying to find his place in a city that never seemed to sleep. He wasn't chasing fame yet. He wasn't thinking about red carpets or movie premieres. He was thinking about being good at his craft, learning his lines, and sometimes just getting through the day without feeling invisible. It was during one of those ordinary days that he first met her. She wasn't anyone famous. She didn't work in front of the camera. She was behind the scenes, quietly moving through the space with a kind of calm presence that made people feel at ease. Some people might not have noticed her at all, but Keanu did. There was something about the way she smiled, a smile that seemed sincere and unforced, not the kind people show when they want attention or approval. It was the kind of smile that made you feel seen, even in a crowded room. Their first interaction was simple, almost accidental. Keanu was trying to figure out a scene, a small misunderstanding with the crew, and she stepped in without being asked. Her words were soft but confident, offering a solution that made everyone nod in agreement. Keanu watched her and thought, she is different. She sees things clearly. She doesn't try to be more than she is, and yet she matters more than anyone in this room. He didn't know it then, but that small moment would mark the beginning of a friendship that would quietly shape his life. At first, their conversations were short and practical. They talked about work, about the day's tasks, about small frustrations that come with any project. But over time, those practical conversations turned into something warmer. They would share little jokes that no one else understood, small observations about life that made them laugh. Keanu, who often felt the world moving too fast around him, began to appreciate how steady she was. She had a way of listening that made him feel like his thoughts mattered, like his feelings were valid. It wasn't long before Keanu realized that he looked forward to seeing her. Not because he needed help with anything, but because just being around her made the day feel lighter. He didn't understand it fully at the time. He wasn't thinking about love or romance. He was thinking about connection, about finding someone who could see him without all the noise, without all the expectations that came with being him. She didn't care about his future fame or whether he would one day be recognized on the streets. She cared about the person in front of her. And that mattered more than anything. Their friendship grew naturally. They spent breaks together, talking about music, books, or the small things that happened around the studio. Keanu discovered that she had a quiet strength. She had dreams and worries like anyone else, but she faced them with a calm determination that inspired him. She never boasted about her knowledge or skills. She didn't try to impress anyone. She simply lived her life in a way that made people feel grounded. Keanu found himself learning from her without realizing it. He learned patience. He learned that kindness doesn't have to be loud to matter. He learned that true friendship isn't about how much you say, but about how much you listen. There were days when the world felt heavy. Keanu had his own struggles, moments of doubt and fear that he rarely shared with anyone. But with her, he felt safe. He didn't have to hide behind a mask or pretend to be someone he wasn't. She didn't judge him for feeling lost or unsure. She simply listened, sometimes offering advice, sometimes just sitting quietly, letting him speak until he felt ready to face the world again. Those moments, small as they were, built a trust between them that would last for years. Sometimes, they would leave the studio after a long day and walk together. The streets were busy, filled with the noise of cars and people rushing by, but when they walked side by side, it felt like a small bubble of calm in the chaos. They didn't always talk. Sometimes they just watched the world go by, sharing a silent understanding that didn't need words. Keanu realized that moments like these were rare. In a world that often felt shallow and fleeting, he had found someone genuine. Someone who made him feel like he could breathe. As months turned into years, their bond deepened. They celebrated small victories together and offered comfort during setbacks. Keanu started noticing things he hadn't before, the way she remembered little details about his life, the way she encouraged him when he doubted himself, the way she laughed at the right moments, not because she wanted to, but because something genuinely amused her. He began to realize that what he felt for her wasn't just friendship. There was something stronger, something quieter, something that made his chest tighten in a way he didn't fully understand. Yet, even as those feelings grew, Keanu didn't rush them. He had learned early in life that life often moves in unpredictable ways. He didn't want to force a label, didn't want to risk the connection they already had. He cherished it too much to do that. So he kept his feelings mostly to himself, expressing them in small gestures, a thoughtful question, a supportive comment, a moment of shared laughter. He hoped she felt the depth of his care without needing to put it into words. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat on a bench outside the studio. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Keanu looked at her and felt a quiet gratitude he couldn't fully express. He thought about all the moments they had shared, all the times she had been there when no one else was. He thought about how rare it was to find someone who truly understood him. He thought about the future, uncertain and unpredictable, and wished he could freeze time in that perfect moment. She turned to him and smiled, noticing his thoughtful silence. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Keanu nodded, though he didn't need to speak. She didn't push. She just sat there, letting the silence stretch comfortably between them. And in that silence, Keanu felt something he had rarely felt before: peace. It wasn't just the peace of the moment, but the peace of knowing that he had found someone who mattered in a way that went beyond words or titles. That night, as they parted ways, Keanu walked home with a quiet awareness. He knew that life could change at any moment. He knew that careers could rise and fall, that opportunities could vanish, that people could drift apart. But he also knew that the connection he had found with her was something that could survive all of that. Something real, something enduring, something that didn't need the spotlight or the applause to exist. Looking back now, Keanu would later say that those early days were some of the most important in his life. Not because of fame or recognition, but because he learned the value of genuine connection. He learned what it meant to be seen, truly seen, by someone who cared not about his success, but about him. He learned that trust and understanding can grow quietly, without drama or spectacle, and that sometimes the most profound relationships start in the simplest ways: a shared smile, a moment of help, a small conversation that turns into something much bigger. Part 1 of this story is about beginnings. It's about noticing someone, appreciating their presence, and understanding the quiet power of human connection. Keanu Reeves, even before he became a household name, found in her a rare gift, someone who made him feel grounded, valued, and understood. And even though life had many challenges ahead, even though fame and distance would come later, the first connection would remain at the heart of everything he did. It was the beginning of a story that would quietly, powerfully, change his life, a story that only grows more meaningful with time. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary moments aren't the ones that happen on stage or in front of cameras. Sometimes, the most extraordinary moments happen in quiet spaces, in ordinary places between two people who simply see each other. And for Keanu, that moment, that connection, was just the beginning. As time passed, Keanu's career began to grow. Roles became bigger, scripts more complex, and the world around him started to notice him in ways it never had before. He was no longer just the quiet young man who moved through the studios unnoticed. People began recognizing him on the streets, asking for autographs, snapping pictures. Fame was slowly finding him like a tide that lifts everything in its path. But even as the world started paying attention, there was one person who treated him the same way she always had, with kindness. With patience, and without any expectation, she remained a constant in his life. A steady presence that wasn't interested in glitz or glamour. While others were drawn to him because of his rising fame, she stayed because of him. That was the remarkable thing about their friendship. It was untouched by the world's opinions or the bright lights of attention. For Keanu, that was rare. In a world that often demanded people wear masks, she was genuine. She didn't need anything from him, and yet she gave him something he valued more than anything: understanding. Their conversations began to deepen as his career became more demanding. Late nights on set, long flights, and endless scripts could make anyone feel exhausted, but she was always there to listen. Not just with words, but with her presence. Sometimes they would sit in a quiet corner of a cafe, sipping coffee and talking about things that weren't related to work. They spoke about dreams, fears, and the little surprises life throws at people. They talked about books they had read, songs that moved them, and memories from the past that shaped who they were. In these moments, Keanu realized that their connection was rare. It wasn't superficial or fleeting. It was real, and it mattered. What made her special wasn't just her kindness or her quiet confidence. It was the way she made him feel like he could be honest about who he was. Keanu had always felt that the world expected him to be larger than life, even when he was just trying to be human. But with her, he could drop all that. He didn't have to pretend to have all the answers or to always be strong. He didn't have to hide his doubts or his worries. She accepted him, flaws and all, without judgment. And that acceptance was rare, something he didn't take lightly. There were moments when he would catch himself thinking about her in ways that went beyond friendship. He noticed how her laughter could lift his spirits, how her advice seemed to come at just the right time, how her eyes reflected understanding even when he couldn't put his feelings into words. But he didn't rush anything. He knew the value of what they already had. He knew that some things, especially the ones that mattered most, shouldn't be forced. So he let their bond grow naturally, letting the trust and understanding deepen over time. As Keanu's fame grew, life became busier and more complicated. There were new faces everywhere he went, people trying to impress, to take a piece of his attention. But she was always different. She never asked for his time, never demanded anything. She simply existed in a way that made him feel grounded, a reminder that not all relationships needed an agenda or a spotlight. She reminded him that life's most meaningful connections often happen quietly. Away from the noise and attention, they had shared so many moments together. By now, small ones that seemed ordinary but carried meaning. A walk in the park after a long day, a shared joke in the middle of a stressful shoot, a conversation about a song that reminded them of their childhood. These moments were simple, but they built something that was strong and enduring. Keanu began to understand that this bond was different from any other he had experienced. It wasn't built on admiration or convenience. It was built on mutual respect, understanding, and a quiet, unwavering support that had no conditions. There were also challenges along the way. As he became more recognized, there were times when the pressures of fame felt overwhelming. The world expected him to be perfect, to always smile, to always be composed. And yet, in those moments, she reminded him that it was okay to be human. She reminded him that he didn't have to be perfect, that it was okay to make mistakes, to feel tired, to need someone to lean on. That kind of reassurance, offered without judgment or expectation, was rare in his world. And he treasured it more than words could say. Even when they didn't see each other for days or weeks, their connection remained. A simple message, a small note, a shared laugh over the phone. These were enough to remind Keanu that she was there. Life moved fast, and distance could have weakened their bond. But it didn't. It only strengthened it, proving to him that their friendship wasn't about constant presence, but about a deep, enduring understanding. As time passed, Keanu began to notice something else: how much he valued her opinion. She had a way of seeing situations clearly, of offering advice that wasn't influenced by ego or expectation. She could tell him the truth, even when it was hard to hear, and he trusted her implicitly. That kind of trust, built over years of shared experiences and quiet support, was priceless. He realized that she had become someone he relied on not just for comfort, but for guidance. She had become an essential part of his life. Even if the world didn't see it, there were quiet moments when Keanu reflected on their connection and realized how rare it was to find someone who truly understood him. In a world full of noise, distraction, and pretense, she remained a steady presence, a reminder that genuine connections do exist. He thought about how easily people could drift apart, how fleeting relationships could be, and yet here was someone who had stayed. Someone who mattered more to him than he could express, someone whose impact on his life was profound even in its quietness. He also noticed how their bond influenced him in ways he hadn't expected. He became more patient, more thoughtful, more aware of the people around him. Her presence reminded him to value kindness, to appreciate the small things, and to see the world with a little more understanding. She didn't change who he was, but she helped him become more of who he wanted to be: someone compassionate, someone genuine, someone who could face life's challenges with quiet strength. Even as their friendship deepened, Keanu never took it for granted. He knew that life could change at any moment, that circumstances could shift, and that people could drift apart. But he also knew that what they had was different. It wasn't based on convenience or circumstance. It was based on a shared understanding, a mutual respect, and an unspoken promise to be there for each other. That kind of connection was rare, and he cherished it deeply. Sometimes, in the quiet moments after a long day, he would think about her and feel a mix of gratitude and wonder. How had he found someone so remarkable in the midst of an unpredictable world? How had he found someone who didn't care about his rising fame, who only cared about him as a person? He didn't have the answers, and he didn't need them. What mattered was that she was there, and that their bond was real. As the days turned into months and the months into years, their friendship became a cornerstone in Keanu's life. It was a source of comfort, a reminder of what truly mattered, and a quiet sanctuary from the chaos of his career. They continued to share moments, some ordinary, some extraordinary, but each one carried meaning. Each one strengthened the bond that had started so simply in a studio, with a small smile and a quiet presence that had captured his attention. Part 2 of their story is about the deepening of trust and understanding. It's about the way connections grow when they are nurtured with care and patience. Keanu Reeves, even as he navigated the growing pressures of fame, continued to value her presence above all else. Their friendship was a safe space, a place where he could be himself without fear of judgment, and a reminder that some of the most meaningful relationships in life are built not on spectacle, but on quiet, unwavering support. In the world of bright lights, applause, and constant attention, she was the one person who kept him grounded. She reminded him that life was about more than success and recognition. It was about moments of connection, shared understanding, and the simple, profound impact one person could have on another's life. And for Keanu, that realization was powerful. It shaped the way he approached relationships, the way he navigated challenges, and the way he understood what truly mattered in life. Through laughter and quiet conversations, through shared struggles and small victories, Keanu learned that friendship, when it is genuine, can endure anything. And in her he found not just a friend, but a guide, a confidant, and a source of strength that would stay with him through all the twists and turns of life. Because in the end, it wasn't fame or fortune that mattered. It wasn't the applause of a crowd or the recognition of strangers. It was the presence of someone who truly saw him, someone who valued him for who he was, and someone who chose to remain by his side even when life became complicated. And that was the remarkable thing about their story, that amidst the noise and chaos of the world, Keanu Reeves had found someone extraordinary, someone who made every challenge easier to face, every joy more meaningful, and every ordinary moment something to treasure. As the years went by, Keanu Reeves' life began to change in ways he had never imagined. His career took off faster than he could have expected. Roles that once seemed like distant dreams were now reality. Movie sets in faraway cities, long flights across continents, and intense schedules became a part of his everyday life. At first, it was exciting. He was finally living the life he had worked so hard for, but with excitement came challenges. The constant travel and demanding work schedules slowly began to take their toll. During this time, he noticed that it was becoming harder to stay connected with her. Their conversations, which once flowed naturally, became shorter and less frequent. There were missed calls, delayed messages, and long periods of silence. Keanu felt the distance growing, and it was hard for him. He didn't like it, but he understood that life was changing for both of them. She too had her own responsibilities, her own path to follow. She was building her life in ways that were important to her, and he couldn't stand in the way. Even though they were apart more often, the bond they shared never disappeared. Keanu realized that this connection wasn't something that could be broken by distance or time. It was stronger than that. Each time they did manage to talk, even if it was just for a few minutes, he felt the same warmth, the same understanding that had existed from the very beginning. Their friendship had grown deeper than casual companionship. It had become a quiet, unspoken promise to always be there for each other. No matter what life threw their way, there were moments when Keanu thought about what it would be like if they were closer, if life had been simpler, if he could spend more time with her. Sometimes, late at night after a long shoot, he would lie in his hotel room thinking about her, wishing he could share the day's small victories or the quiet frustrations with someone who truly understood. He realized that he valued her presence more than he could put into words. She had become a part of his life in a way that he couldn't imagine replacing, even with the distance. He noticed how much she influenced him. He found himself making decisions with her in mind, considering how she would see things, how she would respond. Her advice, though given infrequently now, had the power to guide him through difficult moments. Even small reminders of her, a phrase she once said, a piece of advice, a memory from the past, could make him feel grounded, even in the chaos of his fast-moving life. She had become more than a friend. She was a quiet anchor, a reminder of what truly mattered. However, it wasn't always easy. The world around Keanu was changing fast. People were starting to notice him everywhere. Interviews, paparazzi, fan attention. It was overwhelming at times. He was often caught in situations where he had to be someone he wasn't, someone larger than life. It made him miss the simplicity of their friendship even more. She was someone who had never treated him differently because of who he was becoming. She saw him for the person he had always been, not the celebrity the world expected him to be. That was something he missed deeply. During this period, Keanu often reflected on the nature of life and relationships. He realized that it wasn't always possible to control circumstances. People grew busy, priorities shifted, and sometimes distance was unavoidable. But he also learned that genuine connections could endure these challenges. Their friendship had survived time and distance, and that gave him hope. He knew that even if they couldn't be together as often as before, the bond they had would remain. It was built on trust, understanding, and a deep sense of care, things that couldn't be broken by distance or time. There were times when he wondered what could have been if life had been simpler. If schedules had aligned perfectly, if the world hadn't demanded so much of him, if they could have spent more time together. But he didn't dwell on it for long. Instead, he focused on cherishing the moments they did have. Even a short conversation, a brief message, or a shared laugh was precious. He learned to appreciate the small, fleeting moments that reminded him of their connection. Keanu also noticed how their absence from each other's daily lives highlighted the importance of what they shared. He began to understand that meaningful relationships aren't about constant presence or grand gestures. They're about consistency in care, understanding, and thoughtfulness. She had always been there for him when it mattered most, and that was more important than any physical proximity. Her impact on his life was deep. Even if they didn't speak every day, in the quiet moments of reflection, Keanu thought about how much he had grown because of her influence. She had taught him patience, the value of listening, and the importance of showing care without expecting anything in return. Even now, when their lives were pulling them in different directions, those lessons stayed with him. He approached his work with more thoughtfulness, treated people with more kindness, and faced challenges with a calm determination that he knew he had. Learned from observing her, there were also moments of longing, moments when he wished he could turn back time to the days when life was simpler. He remembered walking through quiet streets with her, laughing over small jokes and sharing thoughts that no one else would understand. Those memories felt like treasures, small pockets of warmth in an otherwise hectic life. He realized that sometimes the most meaningful experiences aren't the big, dramatic events, but the quiet, everyday moments shared with someone who truly understands you. As the distance continued, Keanu became more aware of the fragility of time. He understood that life could change in an instant. People could drift apart, opportunities could vanish, and moments could be lost forever. That awareness made him cherish their friendship even more. Every conversation, every message, every shared memory became significant. He didn't take their bond for granted. He knew that what they had was rare, and he valued it more than anything else in his life. Even in periods of silence, he felt her presence in subtle ways. A memory of a smile, a phrase she had once said, or a piece of advice she had given could appear in his mind at unexpected times, offering comfort and guidance. It was as if she was quietly reminding him that no matter how far apart they were, their connection was still there. Those small reminders were powerful, helping him navigate the complexities of fame, work, and life in general. During this time, Keanu also reflected on the lessons he had learned from her. He realized that relationships were not always about being physically close or spending every moment together. They were about understanding, trust, and emotional presence. Even when life pulled them apart, the emotional bond they shared remained strong. That realization brought him peace. He understood that sometimes love and care aren't measured by proximity, but by the strength of connection that persists. Despite distance, he also began to notice how much he missed the simplicity of their early friendship. The days when they could walk together without a care, talk for hours about nothing in particular, and share laughter that felt effortless. Those moments were no longer frequent, but their memory was vivid, reminding him of what truly mattered. Keanu realized that it wasn't just the friendship itself that he cherished, but the way she made him feel safe, understood, and valued. Even though life had pulled them in different directions, Keanu remained hopeful. He understood that their story wasn't over. Distance didn't have to mean the end of a meaningful connection. He held on to the belief that they would always find ways to reconnect, to share moments of laughter, understanding, and support. Even if life remained busy and unpredictable, that belief kept him grounded and reminded him of the quiet, enduring power of genuine relationships. As he reflected on these years, Keanu realized that their bond had taught him one of life's most important lessons, that true connections can survive time, distance, and life's many changes. It wasn't about constant presence or grand gestures. It was about trust, understanding, and the quiet assurance that someone cared deeply for you, even when they weren't physically there. And in that understanding, Keanu found comfort, strength, and hope for the future. Part 3 of the story is about distance, growth, and the resilience of meaningful connections. It's about how life can pull people apart, but cannot erase the impact they have on each other. Keanu Reeves, even as fame and distance challenged his friendship, continued to value the bond he shared with her. He understood that genuine relationships are not measured by proximity or frequency, but by the depth of care, trust, and understanding that endures over time, through all the changes. He held on to the lessons she had taught him, the memories they had shared, and the quiet strength that their friendship provided. Even when they were apart, he knew that she remained an essential part of his life, someone whose influence would continue to guide him, inspire him, and remind him of what truly mattered. Because in the end, life may pull people apart, but genuine connections have a way of lasting. They leave marks on our hearts that distance cannot erase, and they teach us lessons about patience, understanding, and the quiet power of being truly seen. Keanu Reeves understood that now more than ever, and he carried that understanding with him every day, even as he navigated the fast-changing, demanding world around him. Years had passed, and Keanu Reeves had seen much of the world. His career had taken him across continents, to cities and countries he had once only dreamed of visiting. He had worked with incredible people, experienced the excitement of movie premieres, and felt the weight of fame in ways he could not have imagined. Yet, amid all this, there was a quiet part of his heart that often wandered back to her, the woman, who had been a steady presence long before fame had touched his life. It was during a rare evening off, sitting quietly in his apartment after a long day of travel, that reflection came. He found himself thinking not about his work, not about accolades or recognition, but about her. He remembered the small moments they had shared, the conversations that had lasted late into the night, the walks through quiet streets, and the laughter that had felt effortless. These memories were vivid, almost tangible, and they carried with them a warmth that no applause or red carpet could ever give. Keanu realized something important. In the chaos of life, in the whirlwind of work and attention, he had never stopped feeling the depth of their connection. It wasn't just nostalgia or longing. It was a realization of something profound. She had been, and still was, a guiding presence in his life, even from afar. Every decision he made, every challenge he faced, every moment of doubt or fear had been softened by the thought of her. She had shaped the way he approached life, the way he treated people, and the way he understood himself. He remembered the early days of their friendship, how effortlessly they connected, how her understanding had made him feel seen in a way no one else could. He thought about the times he had doubted himself, wondered if he could handle the pressures of the world, or felt unsure about his place in it. Each time she had been there in some way, offering support, encouragement, or simply presence. And now, as he looked back over decades of experience, he understood that her influence had been quietly shaping him all along, even with distance and years apart. Her memory remained alive in his thoughts. Keanu realized that their bond was not defined by daily presence, by phone calls or texts, or by the small interactions of life. It was defined by trust, understanding, and an emotional depth that had grown stronger over time. He understood that some connections are timeless, transcending the limitations of distance and circumstance. They exist in the way someone's influence lingers in your life, in the quiet guidance of their words, and in the warmth of their memory. He also reflected on how rare such connections were. In a world where people often move in and out of your life, where relationships are sometimes shallow or fleeting, finding someone who truly sees you is extraordinary. She had seen him, not as a rising actor or a future star, but as a person. She had recognized his fears, his doubts, his kindness, and his potential, and had never demanded more than he could give. That recognition, that understanding, was something he had never forgotten and would never forget. There were times when Keanu felt a pang of regret. Life had pulled them apart in ways that neither could control. Their conversations had become less frequent, their shared moments more fleeting. He wondered if he had missed chances to express his gratitude more openly, to let her know how much she meant to him. But then he reminded himself that genuine bonds are not measured by constant communication. Their connection had endured, and that was proof of its strength. Keanu began to notice how these reflections shaped his understanding of relationships and life itself. He realized that sometimes the people who impact your life the most are not those who are always physically present, but those who influence you quietly, who help you grow in ways you may not even notice until much later. She had been that person for him, a quiet teacher, a guide, a source of emotional strength. Her presence had taught him lessons that no script or role could ever provide. He remembered specific moments that had left lasting impressions. The time she had offered a thoughtful piece of advice that had helped him navigate a difficult decision. The way she had laughed at his awkward jokes, making him feel seen and appreciated. The small gestures, the thoughtful questions, and the shared silences that had carried more meaning than words could express. These memories were treasures, reminders of a bond that had grown quietly but powerfully over time. In these reflections, Keanu also recognized the importance of timing in life. Life often moves unpredictably, and opportunities to express feelings or deepen connections don't always align perfectly. Yet he understood that the value of a connection is not diminished by timing. Their friendship, their bond, had survived time, distance, and circumstance. It had endured in the spaces between words, in the memories that lingered, and in the emotional foundation that neither fame nor distance could shake. As he thought about the future, Keanu felt a quiet determination. He wanted to honor the impact she had on his life. Not through grand gestures or public declarations, but through his own actions, through the way he lived, the way he treated others, and the way he carried forward the lessons she had taught him. He realized that part of valuing someone's influence is allowing it to guide you, shaping you into a better, more thoughtful person. And in this, she had already given him one of life's greatest gifts. Keanu also began to notice how reflection could bring clarity. Looking back over the years, he could see patterns, moments, and lessons that had been easy to overlook in the busyness of daily life. He saw how her guidance had helped him navigate challenges, how her understanding had supported him during times of doubt, and how her presence had given him a sense of stability that he often took for granted. These realizations were not just nostalgic. They were transformative, helping him understand the depth of human connection and the quiet power of care and trust. In some ways, these reflections also brought a sense of humility. Keanu recognized that he had been shaped as much by her influence as by his own experiences. He understood that relationships are reciprocal. While she had given him guidance, he had also learned to appreciate the ways he could offer care and understanding to those around him. Their bond had been a mutual exchange of support, empathy, and trust, a reminder that meaningful connections enrich both people involved during these moments of introspection. He found himself revisiting the feelings he had carried for her over the years. They were not fleeting emotions or simple infatuations. They were deep, enduring feelings rooted in admiration, respect, and a profound understanding of who she was. He realized that what he felt for her went beyond friendship. It was a recognition of her impact on his life, a heartfelt appreciation that had only grown stronger with time. Even as he reflected, Keanu knew that she deserved her own path, her own happiness separate from his life. He did not want to impose or complicate her world. That was part of the respect he had for her from the beginning. He valued her autonomy, her choices, and her growth, just as he valued the quiet, lasting impact she had made on him. True care, he realized, does not demand ownership. It respects boundaries while cherishing connection. He also began to understand the beauty of unspoken gratitude. Sometimes the deepest expressions of appreciation are not said aloud but live through action and reflection. Every thoughtful decision, every act of kindness, every moment of integrity became a way of honoring the lessons she had imparted. In this way, he carried her influence quietly but powerfully, allowing it to shape his life without requiring acknowledgement or attention. Keanu thought about the small gestures that had meant so much over the years. A reassuring smile, a gentle word of advice, a simple act of listening. These were not grand or dramatic moments, but they had left a lasting impression. They were reminders that meaningful connections are built on consistency, care, and attentiveness. Even in their absence, the impact of these gestures continued to resonate, shaping his life and perspective in profound ways. As the evening deepened and the city lights flickered outside, Keanu felt a quiet sense of peace. He realized that reflection was not just about looking back. It was about understanding, appreciating, and carrying forward the lessons of the past. She had been a guiding presence, a steady influence, and a source of quiet strength. And even if life had kept them apart at times, the bond they shared was enduring, timeless, and invaluable. Part 4 of this story is about reflection, realization, and emotional clarity. It's about recognizing the impact someone has had on your life and appreciating it fully, even when circumstances have changed. Keanu Reeves, in his quiet moments of introspection, understood that true connection transcends time, distance, and life's many challenges. It exists in the lessons learned, the memories cherished, and the influence that quietly shapes who we are. In the end, he knew that she had been one of the most important people in his life. Not because of fame, not because of recognition, and not because of extraordinary gestures, but because of the depth of understanding, care, and unwavering support she had offered. That realization brought him peace, gratitude, and a profound sense of humility. It reminded him that some of life's most valuable gifts are not tangible, not measured by status or attention, but by the quiet, enduring impact of genuine human connection. Time had passed, and Keanu Reeves had experienced so much in his life. He had faced successes and failures, moments of joy and times of doubt, experiences that shaped him in ways he had never imagined. But there was one thought that returned to him over and over again, no matter where he was or what he was doing. It was the thought of her, the woman who had quietly, steadily, and profoundly influenced his life. She had been there before fame, before the lights, before the recognition. She had seen him as he truly was, and that was a gift he could never forget. One evening, after a long day of reflection and quiet thinking, Keanu found himself speaking to a close friend about life, love, and the people who had mattered most to him. He spoke carefully, almost hesitantly, because these were thoughts he had rarely shared with anyone. He described a friendship that had been constant, unassuming, and deeply meaningful. He spoke about her kindness, her understanding, and the way she had always made him feel safe to be himself. His words were full of warmth, respect, and gratitude. As he spoke, he realized something he hadn't fully admitted to himself before. He had never stopped feeling that she had been, in a very real way, the one. Not necessarily in the way the world might define a relationship, not necessarily in the way of romance as people often imagined it, but in the way that mattered most. She had been the one person who truly saw him, understood him, and valued him for who he was. The thought brought a quiet ache to his heart, a recognition of what he had always known but hadn't fully expressed. Keanu thought about the years they had spent together, the moments both shared and remembered from afar. He thought about their conversations, the shared laughter, the quiet walks, the advice she had given, and the comfort she had provided without even knowing it. He thought about how she had influenced him to be more thoughtful, more patient, and more aware of the people around him. And as he reflected, he realized how much her presence had shaped his life in ways that were invisible to the world, but undeniable to him. There was also a sense of regret, though it was quiet and reflective rather than painful. He wished he could have expressed his feelings more clearly at times, wished he could have told her exactly how much she had meant to him when life was simpler. But he also understood that life is rarely perfect. Circumstances, timing, and responsibilities often interfere with our ability to express our hearts fully. That didn't diminish the truth of his feelings. It only made him more aware of the importance of appreciating and acknowledging the people who truly mattered. In his reflection, Keanu realized that expressing his gratitude and recognition didn't require grand gestures or public statements. Sometimes the most meaningful confessions are simple, honest, and heartfelt. It was about sincerity, about speaking from the heart without expecting anything in return. And that was exactly what he wanted to do, to acknowledge her impact, to honor her presence in his life, and to recognize the quiet, profound ways she had shaped him over the years. He remembered the early days of their friendship, the small moments that now seemed extraordinary in hindsight. How she had smiled when he was nervous, how she had listened when he had doubts, how she had encouraged him to keep going even when the world felt overwhelming. Those moments had been ordinary then, but in retrospect they had been extraordinary. They had formed the foundation of a bond that had endured the test of time, distance, and the pressures of fame. Keanu also reflected on how rare such connections are in life. In a world full of fleeting interactions and superficial relationships, finding someone who truly understands you is a gift. She had been that gift for him. She had seen beyond appearances, beyond the rising star, and into the person he really was. She had recognized his fears, his hopes, his kindness, and his potential, and she had accepted him completely. That kind of acceptance is rare, and he realized that he had been fortunate beyond measure to have experienced it. As he continued reflecting, Keanu felt a sense of peace mixed with gratitude. He realized that, even though life had taken them in different directions, their bond had never truly faded. The moments they shared, the lessons she had taught him, and the quiet influence she had on his life remained. That realization brought comfort, a reminder that genuine connections are enduring, even when circumstances change. Their relationship was timeless, not because it was always visible or constantly present, but because it existed deeply in their hearts. In thinking about her, Keanu also understood the importance of unspoken care. Sometimes the greatest expressions of love or gratitude do not require words. They are shown through thoughtfulness, actions, and the quiet acknowledgement of someone's significance in your life. Every thoughtful choice he made, every act of kindness toward others, every moment of reflection on what truly mattered was, in a way, a tribute to her influence. She had shaped not only his understanding of relationships but also his approach to life itself. Keanu also realized that true care is respectful and selfless. While he felt deeply for her, he knew that her happiness and freedom were as important as the connection they shared. He had never sought to control her life or demand her attention. He simply valued the bond they had, the lessons she had imparted, and the memories they had created together. That understanding, he realized, was part of the maturity and depth of his feelings that went beyond need or desire and rested in genuine appreciation and respect. One day, during an interview, the topic of meaningful people in his life came up. Keanu paused, a rare and thoughtful expression on his face. He spoke carefully, choosing his words with honesty and heart. He shared that there had been someone who had profoundly shaped him, someone whose influence he carried quietly but powerfully. He didn't reveal her identity, respecting her privacy, but he described the impact she had on his life, her kindness, her understanding, and the quiet strength that had helped him navigate life's challenges. In that moment, it was clear to everyone listening that he spoke from the heart. His words carried warmth, humility, and an emotional honesty that was rare in public statements. He acknowledged that sometimes life doesn't allow us to be with the people who mean the most in the ways we might wish, but that doesn't lessen their importance. Some people leave marks on our hearts that last a lifetime, shaping who we are, how we think, and how we approach the world. She had been that person for him. Keanu reflected on how their bond had evolved over time. From the first simple interactions to years of trust, support, and shared understanding, their relationship had grown quietly but powerfully. It had survived distance, challenges, and life's unpredictability, proving its strength. And now, in his reflection and in rare moments of public acknowledgement, he wanted to honor that bond, to express even indirectly the depth of his gratitude and affection. He realized that the confession he had carried in his heart for decades wasn't about claiming or changing the past. It was about recognizing a truth that had always existed. She had been the one person who truly saw him, understood him, and made his life richer simply by being a part of it. That recognition, he knew, was enough. It wasn't about expecting anything in return or rewriting history. It was about acknowledging the gift of having someone extraordinary in your life, even if circumstances kept you apart. In thinking about her impact, Keanu felt a profound sense of completion. He didn't need a dramatic moment or a perfect scene to honor their bond. The truth of his feelings was already present in the way he lived his life, the choices he made, and the respect and care he carried in his heart. He understood that some confessions don't require a stage. They are lived quietly, through memory, reflection, and the ongoing influence someone has on your life. Finally, he allowed himself to express a simple, heartfelt truth. She had been the one. Not in a way that demanded recognition or attention, but in the way that mattered most. She had mattered profoundly and permanently. She had shaped him, guided him, and reminded him of what truly matters in life: connection, understanding, kindness, and the quiet, enduring impact one person can have on another. That was his confession, his acknowledgement, and his gratitude. Keanu knew that she had her own life, her own journey, and her own happiness. He wished her well, not out of obligation, but out of deep respect and care. He wanted her to be happy, to thrive, to live fully, just as she had allowed him to grow and thrive through her presence. That understanding, he realized, was part of the depth of their connection. It was love expressed without possession, gratitude without expectation, and recognition without condition. As he reflected on everything, he felt a quiet sense of peace and fulfillment. Their story, though complicated by time and distance, had endured. Their bond had been meaningful, transformative, and lasting. And in that he found joy, gratitude, and a profound understanding of what truly matters in life. The confession, though long delayed, was not about changing the past. It was about honoring it, acknowledging it, and carrying its lessons forward into the future. Part 5 of this story is about acknowledgement, gratitude, and heartfelt confession. It's about recognizing the people who shape our lives in ways that are lasting and meaningful. Keanu Reeves, after decades of reflection, quietly admitted that she had been the person who truly saw him, influenced him,